Revolutionary greetings, comrades. We continue discussing the land question in Zimbabwe for us to have a better understanding on what is obtaining on the ground currently, where villagers have been evicted from their land, which they occupied mainly from 2000. In that year, in 2000, ZANU-PF-led government blamed the main opposition movement for democratic change for rejecting the draft constitution which was placed in a referendum. The accusation was that by rejecting that constitution, which had a clause on nationalization, therefore the MDC then was advancing the interests of the white commercial farmers. But what I want to point out is that ZANU-PF has never been committed in addressing the land imbalances in Zimbabwe. You did not need the constitutional referendum for you to distribute the land. After the expiry of the 10-year tenure, which was adopted at the Lancaster House agreement in 1979, you did not need to go through a writing of a new constitution. As we all know, that the Lancaster House constitution by 2000 had been amended for about 19 times, but none of those amendments were about land. It was about entrenching ZANU-PF's role. So ZANU-PF from 1990 had a two-thirds majority. In fact, in 1990 and the 1995 elections, ZANU-PF only lost about 3 seats in the elections. So in other words, out of the 120 contested seats, ZANU-PF will win 117 seats. So it has the power to amend the constitution and insert a clause in the constitution to nationalize land if it wanted to nationalize land and place land in the hands of society as a whole. But it had not that interest, did not have that interest. So the blame game shifted to the MDC to say, because you rejected the draft constitution in a constitutional referendum in February 2000, therefore you take responsibility and your partners, your international partners, for rejecting a land reform in Zimbabwe. But we all know, as we discussed yesterday in the last video, that when ZANU-PF came into power in 1980, the Conservative Party was in power in Britain. The Conservative Party has always been friends to ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF only began to hold the land conference in 1998 after the Labour Party had come to power. During the 17 years that ZANU-PF had been in power and the Conservative Party was in power in Britain, ZANU-PF did not make any moves to seek for compensation in the land, in carrying out the land reform program. So when the Labour Party came into power in Britain in 1997, in 1998, it was then that the land conference was held, land donor conference was held, to try and get Britain and the hard partners to fund the land reform in Zimbabwe. Britain rejected that under the Labour Party, and we know the reasons, which we might discuss later. But from the land donor conference of 1998, ZANU-PF has had two-thirds majority in parliament. So it should have used its parliamentary dominance to come up with a clause to nationalize or to take land using legal instruments without going to occupy land, as we saw in 2000, which today the villagers have been removed. There are also those, after the video that we recorded, that argue that ZANU-PF could not carry out the land reform program because this was going to affect negatively negotiations that were underway in South Africa. But we all know that the negotiations in South Africa ended in 1994 with a democratic election which happened in 1994, and by 1996 South Africa had adopted its constitution, and it was in 1996 that de Klerk and his team left government. So whatever Zimbabwe was doing through legal means, through using the constitution to carry out a land reform in Zimbabwe, it was not going to have any impact in South Africa. So from the 1994 democratic elections in South Africa, if the Zimbabwean government was serious, it was going then to amend the constitution and carry out a land reform which was going to benefit the mass of the people. But what the ZANU-PF government did, to its credit though, is that from 1991, 1992, it carried out a land reform program which was targeting the middle class. It was not targeting the mass of the people, landless people. It was targeting the middle class. So if you could prove that you have capital to develop land, you were given pieces of land. So a number of middle class who had interest in farming obtained their land in 1991, in 1992. What one needed to do was to prove that the capital. I know some people that benefited from that land reform program, because some were selling cattle to the Cold Storage Commission in Zimbabwe. They will take part of their application, they will attach the receipts from the Cold Storage Commission, where they will be selling their cattle, to say, we are cattle farmers, this is what we are going to do if we are given land. And such individuals were given land. But this did not extend to the mass of the people. And it is this mass of the people that is being uprooted from their homes, as we are currently seeing. In the next video, we are going to then try to zero in to have an understanding on the intentions of the government of President Emmerson Mnangagwa in removing people from land. But we wanted to point out that the blame on the MDC in 2000 was misplaced, because ZANU-PF had the power to amend the constitution. It could have used legal instruments to acquire land and benefit the mass of the people in Zimbabwe. Please write in the comment section, share your views. If you are on TikTok, please follow us. Kindly also subscribe to this YouTube channel. Otherwise, Amandla Comrades.